In the beautiful city of Lagos, Nigeria, Bola Adeyemi's life was about to change forever. She was the epitome of grace and beauty, beloved by all who knew her. Bola had been the pride of her family, her father's golden child, and her stepmother's perfect daughter. She was set to marry Femi, a young, successful lawyer from a reputable family. Their union was to be the talk of the town, the kind of fairy tale that everyone dreams about. But just days before the wedding, Bola's world was turned upside down. It was a warm evening, the night of her bridal shower. Bola's stepmother, Ireti, had insisted on planning the event. Though they had a cordial relationship, Bola had always sensed an underlying tension between them. Ireti, a woman of ambition, had married Bola's father for his wealth and influence, bringing her own daughter, Temi, into the family. Temi, Bola's stepsister, had always lived in her shadow, and there were whispers that Ireti was envious of Bola's place in her father's heart. The party was a glamorous affair, filled with laughter, music, and drinks. Bola, always the cautious one, sipped sparingly from her glass, but as the night wore on, she began to feel dizzy, her vision blurring. Her friends noticed her condition, but Temi, her stepsister, assured them that Bola was just overwhelmed by the excitement of the evening. All of a sudden, Bola lost consciousness. When Bola awoke the next morning, she found herself in an unfamiliar room, in the bed of a man she had never seen before. Panic gripped her as she realized what had happened. She quickly gathered her belongings and fled the room, her mind racing with questions and fear. Who was this man? How had she ended up here? Upon returning home, Bola was met with fury. Her father, who had always been her protector, looked at her with disgust. Ireti, her stepmother, had somehow managed to twist the story, making it seem as though Bola had willingly betrayed her fiancé on the eve of their wedding. Femi, humiliated and heartbroken, called off the wedding immediately, and this brought shame and disgrace to Bola's father. Bola pleaded with her father, trying to explain that she had been drugged and didn't know what had happened. But her father, influenced by her stepmother's lies, refused to believe her. He disowned her and forced her to leave the country to avoid further disgrace. 5 years passed, and Bola's life had changed dramatically. She had moved to the United States, where she rebuilt her life from the scratch. But she was not alone. Bola had discovered that she was pregnant shortly after arriving in America. The stranger from that terrible night was the father of her child. Though she had no way of finding him, Bola decided to keep the baby. Her son, Ayomide, became the light of her life, giving her strength to move forward despite the pain of the past. Back in Nigeria, life continued for Bola's family. Temi, Bola's stepsister, now the favored daughter, was engaged to Femi, the very man who had once promised his life to Bola. Bola's stepmother had orchestrated the match, finally securing her daughter the life she had always envied Bola for. But on the day of Temi and Femi's engagement, a figure from the past walked through the doors of the grand celebration. It was Bola, more beautiful and confident than ever. Holding the hand of her son, the room fell silent as everyone turned to see the woman they had once cast aside. Femi's face turned pale, while Bola's stepmom and sister exchanged panic glances. Bola's father, who had aged significantly since she left, stood frozen in shock. Seeing his daughter after all these years brought back the memories of how he had wronged her. The weight of his guilt bore down on him, but before he could speak, Bola's gaze met his, and he saw something in her eyes that made him realize she was no longer the naive girl he had cast out. As the evening went on, the guests murmured about Bola's return, Femi, unable to contain his curiosity, approached Bola cautiously. Bola, he began, his voice laced with uncertainty. Is this your son? Bola smiled. Yes, Femi, this is Ayomide, my son. Femi looked at the boy and asked, who is his father? The answer came crashing down on him when a man entered the room. Yinka, a prominent businessman who had recently moved back to Nigeria after years abroad. Yinka's eyes locked onto Bola's and he froze. Memories of that night 5 years ago flooded his mind. He had been at the hotel on business, and when he woke up to find a beautiful woman beside him, he had been shocked. But before he could learn anything about her, she had disappeared. He had searched for her, but she was gone without a trace. Now standing before him was the woman he had unknowingly slept with, and the boy at her side, his son. Bola remembered his face immediately. Yinka walked over to Bola, his gaze fixed on Ayomide. Is he my son? Yinka asked, his voice trembling. Bola nodded. Yes, Yinka, this is your son, Ayomide. The room erupted in chaos. Bola's stepmom and sister's plan were unraveling before their eyes. Yinka, who was highly influential and powerful, was now connected to Bola in a way no one could have predicted. The power dynamics had shifted, and it was clear that Bola was no longer the outcast they had made her. Yinka, overjoyed and overwhelmed, embraced his son for the first time. He turned to Bola, his eyes filled with gratitude and remorse. I have spent years searching for you. I never knew I had a son. Please forgive me for what happened. Bola replied, there's nothing to forgive. You did not know. It wasn't your fault. But now, our son will have the father he deserves. As the day passed, the news of Bola's return and her connection to Yinka spread throughout the city. Femi, who had once loved Bola, was left to grapple with his own guilt and regret. He realized that he had let go of the woman who had truly cared for him, all because of lies and deceit. Bola's stepmom and sister saw their carefully constructed lives fall apart. Yinka, who had once been a close associate of Femi's family, withdrew his support and severed all ties with them. Femi called off the engagement with Temi, Bola's stepsister, and she was left with nothing but the bitter taste of failure. The stepmother, who had plotted against Bola, was exposed for the manipulative woman she was. Her reputation was destroyed, and she was castigated by the very society she had once sought to control. Bola, now empowered by her new life and her son, found peace in knowing that justice had been served. She had returned to the world that once cast her aside, but this time she was in control. The power had shifted, and those who had betrayed her were now at her mercy. With Yinka by her side, Bola rebuilt her family in Nigeria, giving Ayomide, her son, the family he deserved. She no longer feared the past, for she had faced it head-on and emerged victorious. And as she watched the downfall of those who had wronged her, she knew that her return had not just been for herself, but for her son, the future she had fought so hard to protect. Bola's return held a lesson for everyone involved, that the truth always comes to light, and those who betray others will ultimately face the consequences of their actions. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. See you in my next video. Bye.